The Galactic Council Hall was a place where no human had ever stood before. It was vast and shining with golden walls that seemed to glow from within. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into soft blue mist. Hundreds of alien species filled the room, each different in size, shape, and color. Some floated on wings, some had hard shells, some shimmered like moving light. Their voices mixed into a storm of sounds, whispers, and arguments. The atmosphere was tense, because everyone knew why they had gathered that day. They had questions, dangerous questions, and only one group could answer them: the humans. The humans entered last. Their footsteps echoed across the polished floor, leading every head to turn. At the front was Ambassador Daniel Harris, tall, calm, and carrying the weight of humanity's reputation on his shoulders. He wore a dark diplomatic robe, yet his eyes showed the sharp awareness of a man who had seen war. Behind him walked Captain Laura Bennett, her navy blue uniform gleaming. She didn't speak, but her presence carried a message louder than words. Outside in orbit, powerful human warships waited, and not just simple warships, ships that were strong enough to unbalance the entire galaxy if they were ever used in anger. Whispers filled the chamber. Aliens muttered to each other. Some pointed their tentacles, claws, or antennae toward the humans, others simply narrowed their eyes, their distrust written in every movement. To them, humans were still new, a young species that had risen too quickly. They were curious, yes, but also frightened, because wherever humans went, they carried weapons, more weapons than anyone thought reasonable. The council chair, an elder alien diplomat named Orac, rose slowly. His skin was silver and cracked like ancient stone. His eyes glowed softly, and his voice carried across the hall without the need for any translator. He looked directly at Daniel. "Human," Orac said. "Your species has come to this council, asking for recognition and alliance, but there is a matter that cannot be ignored. You bring ships armed with weapons large enough to shatter moons. You carry fleets that frighten every peaceful world. Why, human, do you carry such weapons? What lies beneath this obsession with war?" The room grew silent, every eye, hundreds of them, locked onto Daniel. The ambassador felt the weight of their suspicion pressing down like chains. He had known this question would come. It was the reason many wanted to keep humans outside the council. Humanity was seen as too violent, too dangerous. Some alien voices had already whispered that if humanity was not stopped, it would one day dominate the stars through fear and firepower. Daniel's task was to break that belief. For a moment, Daniel did not answer. He let the silence stretch, forcing the council to feel the heaviness of their own accusation. Laura shifted beside him, her hand brushing against the device on her belt that held the speech notes, but she didn't speak. She leaned closer and whispered so softly only Daniel could hear, "They must not see us as weak. If we bow, everything we've built will collapse." Daniel straightened, his heartbeat steady, but he could feel the council watching his every breath. He looked around, seeing faces of species who had lived for thousands of years, civilizations older than Earth itself. And yet, for all their wisdom, there was fear in their eyes. Fear of the unknown. Fear of humans. Orac's eyes narrowed further, his voice like stone grinding against stone. "Answer us now, human, or humanity will be cast out of this council forever." The words struck like a blade. The threat was clear. If Daniel failed here, humans would be alone in the galaxy, without allies, without trade, and surrounded by enemies who already distrusted them. The silence deepened. It felt like even the walls of the council leaned closer, waiting for the human's answer. Daniel took a slow breath, his voice calm but firm. "You ask why we carry such weapons," he began. His words echoed softly through the chamber, steady and controlled. "You see our fleets, our dreadnoughts, and you think they are built for conquest. But you do not know our story. You do not know what it means to be human." A ripple went through the crowd. Some aliens muttered at his boldness. Others leaned forward, curious. Daniel could see Orac watching him, searching for weakness. But Daniel did not falter. He had carried this burden too long, and today was the moment to share it. Laura's eyes flicked to the side. She saw the council scribes recording every word. saw alien leaders whispering among themselves. She knew this was more than a speech, it was a trial. Humanity was on trial, and Daniel Harris was their voice. The tension thickened. The glowing walls of the chamber seemed to dim. All across the galaxy, on different worlds, people waited to hear the answer, for this council was broadcast live to countless systems. If humanity failed here, billions would know it within moments. If humanity succeeded, then perhaps the galaxy would finally understand. Daniel's words cut through the silence again, not with arrogance, but with a calm fire. We carry such weapons because we were born in a place that gave us no choice. His tone was quiet but powerful. The council leaned closer without realizing it, drawn by the gravity of his voice. And so the story began. A story that would change everything. A story that would make the galaxy see humanity not as monsters but as survivors. Daniel Harris stood tall, his calm face hiding the storm inside him. He knew the moment had come, the very moment he had prepared for since leaving Earth. All the eyes of the council were fixed on him, hundreds of alien species waiting, judging. Some saw humans as a danger, others as a curiosity, but all demanded one thing, an answer. The humans had not come to the council empty-handed. In orbit above the shining city, their fleet hovered like watchful giants. Sleek destroyers with black hulls, cruisers armed with weapons no one dared to name, and at the very center, a dreadnought that eclipsed even the largest alien vessel. Its cannons could silence worlds, its armor could withstand storms of plasma, fire. To the other races, it was not just a ship, it was a threat, and that threat was now the reason why Daniel stood before them. The council chamber was tense. Orak, the elder alien chair, leaned forward, his glowing eyes narrowing. You come with fleets that blaze across the skies, his voice rang out. You come with ships meant for war. Is this how you seek peace? By surrounding our home with firepower? Daniel kept his voice steady. We seek respect, not conquest, he answered. But he knew those words were not enough. The council wanted proof. Proof that humans were not simply another violent species, eager for dominance. Behind Daniel, Captain Laura Bennett shifted slightly. Her hand touched the edge of the table, her face calm, but her voice low as she whispered, They cannot see weakness. If they think we are fragile, they will break us. Her words were sharp and true. Humanity's history was full of predators, both alien and human, who struck the moment they smelled weakness. Daniel nodded subtly, then looked back at the council. Orak's voice grew louder. We ask once, more human, explain these weapons, or we will cast your kind out of this council forever. The silence that followed was heavy, so heavy that even the humming of the chamber lights seemed to vanish. Delegates leaned forward in their seats, claws tightening, wings folding, tendrils twitching. Daniel could feel the weight of their expectations pressing against him. He could almost hear their unspoken words. Humans are too dangerous. Humans must be stopped. Humans do not belong here. But he also remembered Earth. He remembered the cities, built on ruins, the people who carried scars of survival, the children who grew up under skies filled with satellites and defenses. Every weapon humanity built had come from necessity, not from desire. It was a truth that no alien had ever understood. Until now. Daniel let out a slow breath, then spoke. His voice calm, but each word heavy. You see our ships in orbit. You see our dreadnought and you think they are meant to conquer. But you do not see the storms we have endured. You do not see the predators we have fought off since the beginning of our existence. Our weapons are not a banner of war. They are a shield we carry because the galaxy has never been kind to the weak. The chamber rippled with whispers. Some aliens looked shocked, others angry, but many grew silent, listening more closely than before. They had expected arrogance, pride, or threats, but instead Daniel spoke with the weight of truth. Laura stepped forward, her boots echoing softly against the polished floor. She didn't draw her weapon, but the mere presence of her uniform reminded the council of the fleet waiting outside. She spoke with firm clarity. We do not ask for tribute, we do not demand servitude, we come here because we want to stand as equals. But equality cannot exist if others see us as weak. Weakness invites chains. Weakness invites death. Her words struck a nerve. Some of the younger alien delegates looked at each other uneasily. They remembered their own histories, their own wars, their own losses to invaders who had once preyed upon them. Perhaps they thought the humans were not so different. Orak raised a hand, silencing the chamber. His eyes glowed brighter as he studied Daniel and Laura. His voice was low but sharp. Words are not enough. We demand more than speeches. Show us why humanity builds fleets that can blot out stars. Show us why we should not fear you. Daniel did not move, but his mind raced. He had planned for this moment. He knew the Council would never accept humanity without a fight, not of weapons, but of truth. He would need to show them what humans had endured. He would need to tell them the story of Earth itself. As the silence stretched, Daniel felt the eyes of his crew behind him, brave men and women who had traveled light years to stand in this chamber. He thought of the dreadnought above. Its silent guns pointed at no one but powerful enough to destroy everyone. He thought of the billions back on Earth, waiting for his words, depending on his strength. And in that moment, he understood something. The Council did not just fear humanity's weapons, they feared humanity's spirit. That unbroken will, that refusal to kneel, that was what truly unsettled them. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his voice calm. You ask for answers, and you will have them. Not through threats, not through fear, but through truth. His eyes swept across the chamber, meeting alien gaze after alien gaze. We built these weapons not because we desired war, but because survival demanded it. And if you will listen, I will tell you our story. The silence deepened again. The chamber, the Council, even the galaxy beyond seemed to lean closer. And as Daniel prepared to speak of humanity's past, the Council understood one thing. This was no simple explanation. This was the beginning of something far greater, a story that could reshape their view of mankind forever. Daniel stood silently for a long moment, letting the Council grow restless, letting the tension sharpen until it was almost painful. Then, when the silence was ready to break, he began to speak. His voice was steady, calm, and filled with weight. On Earth, survival has never been gentle, he said. His words echoed through the vast chamber. Each alien ear caught the tone, some curious, some fearful, some skeptical. He told them about Earth itself, a world that had tested humanity from the very beginning. We were born on a planet of storms, Daniel continued. Hurricanes tore down our homes, earthquakes split our lands, fires swallowed our forests, and diseases carried away our families. The images came alive in the minds of the Council as his words painted them. Every generation of humans has known hunger, loss, and struggle. Our first weapons were not made to conquer neighbors. They were made to hunt food, to protect children from beasts that would tear them apart. Some of the alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. Many of their own species had been nurtured by safer worlds, planets where predators were few and weather was calm. For them, the idea of daily survival against the fury of nature was strange. Some whispered among themselves, claws tapping nervously on the tables. Others leaned closer, their eyes glittering with curiosity. Daniel continued without pause. As we grew, as we learned, our challenges did not vanish. They changed, they became each other. Wars rose among us, long before we looked to the stars. Kingdoms clashed, empires burned, weapons grew sharper, stronger, deadlier. He did not hide the ugliness. He told of battles that covered continents, of soldiers who marched into fire, of cities reduced to ash. We are not blind to our own blood, he admitted. We carry scars older than memory, but from every war, every disaster, something new was forged. Laura Bennett glanced around the chamber. She saw alien leaders shake their heads, disgust clear in their expressions, but she also saw others watching with rapt attention. They were hearing honesty, not excuses, and that honesty was striking harder than polished lies ever could. Daniel pressed on, his tone deepening. You look at us and you see weapons. You think they mean hunger for conquest. But those weapons, every one of them, were born from fear, from need, from survival. When an enemy came, when a tyrant rose, when a predator threatened, We built what we needed to endure. We fought, yes, but only because the alternative was extinction. The chamber grew quiet again, whispers fading. Some alien diplomats who had mocked humans as savages now frowned thoughtfully. Others folded their arms, unwilling to be swayed. Orak, the elder chair, remained still, his glowing eyes locked on Daniel. He wanted the truth, and Daniel was giving it. The ambassador then shared a story, one that many humans back home knew but no alien had ever heard. Once, he said softly, our world was struck by a rock from the heavens, an asteroid large enough to wipe out life. It did not come for us. It came long before humanity walked upright. It ended the age of great beasts. It showed us the truth, that the universe itself does not care if you live or die. His voice hardened. When we learned this history, we swore we would never be so helpless again. We would build, prepare, defend, because on Earth the price of weakness is death. A heavy silence followed. The council delegates looked at one another, some with surprise, some with doubt, but many with a new kind of respect. They were realizing something. Humanity had not chosen violence for pleasure. They had been forced into it by the cruelty of their world, and by the indifference of the universe. Laura stepped forward then. Adding her voice, her tone was sharp, every word measured. We are not proud of the wars we fought nor the blood we spilled, but we are proud of the fact that we survived, and survival is why we are here today before you, not begging for mercy but standing as equals. Her words cut across the chamber, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Daniel looked around slowly. His gaze moved from delegate to delegate. You think us dangerous? He said. Perhaps we are, but not because we crave power. We are dangerous because we endure. We are dangerous because no matter what hunts us, no matter what threatens us, we will not fall. We never had the luxury of peace. We had only the choice to fight or to die. And we chose to fight. The council shifted again. The once hostile murmurs softened. The story of Earth, its storms, its predators, its endless trials, was unlike the homeworlds of many who sat there, and though some still frowned, their fear was no longer simple. It was mixed now with something else. Understanding. Daniel ended with words that hung in the silence like iron. You wanted to know why humans carry such weapons. It is because our world demanded it. It is because the universe reminded us, again and again, that nothing is permanent. Not safety, not peace, not life. And so we arm ourselves not to rule, but to survive. The chamber remained still. The counselors looked at each other, unsure what to say. For the first time, humanity's story had been told not as an excuse, but as truth. A truth too raw, too brutal to ignore, and though the judgment had not yet come, Daniel could see it in their eyes. The seed of respect had been planted. The council hall was silent. But the silence wasn't cold anymore. It was the kind of silence that came when people were listening closely, thinking deeply. Daniel had given them a truth that many of them didn't want to hear, but couldn't ignore either. It was the truth about Earth, about humanity's painful journey, about why humans carried such powerful weapons. Then Laura Bennett took a step forward. Her boots made a soft sound on the polished floor. She didn't smile. Her face was firm. She lifted a small device from her belt and activated a hologram that floated above the council floor. It flickered for a moment, then glowed bright with images. Images no alien in that room had ever seen before. The first image was of old Earth battlefields, broken cities, skies dark with smoke, machines of war rolling through ruined streets. Human soldiers exhausted and bleeding carrying each other through fire. Some of the council members looked away. Others leaned in. Their expressions changed as they realized this was not propaganda. It was memory, Laura spoke clearly. We don't hide what we've done. We've made mistakes. We've fought wars against our own kind. We've suffered. Her voice didn't shake. But we learned, and we never forgot the cost. The hologram shifted. Now it showed something else, black space, silent and cold, then a flash, and from the dark came a massive asteroid heading straight for Earth. The screen showed simulations what would have happened if it hit. Oceans boiling, skies blackened, billions dead. That rock was just one of many, Laura said. Space has tried to kill us again and again. We built defenses not because we wanted to control others, but because we refused to let our people die without a chance. Gasps came from several alien delegates. Some had never imagined preparing for such disasters. On their peaceful worlds, space was just stars and dreams. But for humans, space was a threat, always watching, always waiting to test their strength. Then the image changed again. This time it showed something worse. Alien ships invading Earth. Strange crafts dropping fire onto cities. Creatures marching across land that wasn't theirs. The council chamber grew cold. Some species recognized the shapes of the ships. They were from empires long gone. Empires who had once seen Earth as a weak, primitive world, ripe for conquest. Laura looked at them without flinching. We did not start those wars, she said, but we ended them. Another flicker, and the hologram now showed human warships rising from Earth's surface like birds of metal. They flew to meet the alien invaders. They fought in orbit, in the sky, on the ground. They bled, they burned, but they never surrendered. Every time we were attacked, we were outnumbered, Laura said. Outgunned, outmatched. But we didn't fall. She tapped the device again, and now the image showed humans rebuilding after war, hands pulling others from rubble, food being shared, homes rising again from ash. Because we don't just fight, we rebuild, we protect. One alien ambassador, green-skinned with glowing eyes, raised a hand. Why not ask for help from the council? He asked. Why suffer alone? Daniel stepped beside Laura, answering before she could. Because the council was not there. No one was. We were alone. His voice carried pain, not anger. By the time we reached for the stars, we had already learned one lesson. If you want to survive, you build your own shield. Another ambassador, tall and golden, hissed quietly. Your weapons are still terrifying. Even if you say they are for defense, Laura nodded. They are terrifying. They're meant to be, not to scare you, but to stop what's out there. She pointed upward, toward the ceiling, toward space. There are things in the dark, things that don't want peace, things that don't listen to reason. And when they come, we don't have time to explain. We have to be ready. The images faded slowly, the hologram shutting off. But its echoes remained in the minds of everyone present. The burned cities, the alien ships, the battered human soldiers, they were real. Daniel took one step closer to the center of the hall. We didn't come to threaten, he said. But we also didn't come defenseless. We carry these weapons, not to show power, but to make sure our people are never helpless again. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of even the most hostile delegates. You call us dangerous, he said softly. And maybe we are, but only to those who bring harm. There was a long pause. Then Orak, the elder council chair, finally spoke. His voice was slower now, less sharp. You say your weapons are for protection. You show us your pain, your scars. But how do we know you will not turn those same weapons against us one day? Daniel didn't look away. You don't, he said honestly. Just like we don't know if you'll betray us. But trust is not built on words alone. It's built on choices, on actions. He gestured to Laura. We've escorted refugee ships through pirate sectors. We've sent aid to colonies hit by solar flares. And not once have we asked for payment. Another pause, this time thoughtful. The aliens were beginning to see the humans not as monsters, but as survivors, protectors, maybe even allies, and still, deep in space, the human fleet waited in silence, armed but calm, watching over their people, ready for anything. They didn't come to conquer. They came to be understood. The council chamber stayed quiet, but the mood was different now. Before, the aliens had looked at the humans with fear and suspicion. Now they looked at them with curiosity. Some were still unsure, but others had started to understand. They saw not just soldiers, but people who had survived countless dangers and still stood. Tall, Orak leaned back in his seat, his fingers steepled under his glowing eyes. You speak well, Ambassador Harris, he said slowly. But words and stories are not enough. Show us your truth, not with speeches, but with proof. Daniel gave a small nod. We expected you would ask for that. Captain Laura Bennett tapped her wrist console, and once again a hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. But this time it was not of war or destruction. It was a ship, an old one, floating above Earth's atmosphere, battered and heavy but beautiful in its own way. This, Laura said clearly, is Horizon. The ship slowly rotated in the hologram, revealing its size and scars. It wasn't sleek like the modern cruisers or polished like diplomatic vessels. Its hull was dark gray with deep marks where it had taken hits and survived. Along its side, the name Horizon was written in faded white paint. Daniel stepped forward again, his voice softer now. This was the first human battleship to leave Earth, built at a time when our world was falling apart. The aliens leaned in, some whispering to their aides. A few recognized the ship, at least from old records, but most had never seen it before. At the time, Daniel continued, our planet was divided, torn by war, hunger, and fear. Then came the raiders, aliens who saw us as easy prey. They attacked, took resources, stole people, left us in ruins. The hologram showed older footage now, real video from the past. Human engineers working in broken factories, soldiers guarding workers while explosions lit the sky in the distance. Families sleeping in bunkers as alarms screamed above. We didn't have a fleet then, Laura added. We didn't even have peace among ourselves. But we had one thing, willpower, the will to survive, to protect our people no matter what it cost. So the humans built Horizon, Daniel explained, not because they wanted to travel or explore, but because they had no choice. It was the Yab-Yam, first time Earth united not under one flag but under one goal, defense, he said. The ship wasn't perfect. The video showed its early test flights, shaking in the sky, sparks flying from the engines, engineers cheering when it didn't explode. Even Laura smiled slightly as the old clip played. When the Horizon launched, Daniel said, it carried only one mission, to defend Earth from those who thought we couldn't fight back. The chamber watched as the video showed Horizon in battle, going up against ships that were faster, bigger, and more advanced. But somehow, Horizon survived. Its hull burned, its engines roared, but it never stopped. It didn't win because it was the strongest, Laura said. It won because the people inside it refused to let it fall. The aliens watched the final clip, Horizon returning to Earth, damaged, barely holding together, but victorious. Crowds gathered on the ground, cheering as it landed, some crying, others shouting with pride. That ship became more than metal, Daniel said quietly. It became a symbol, not of war, but of survival. It reminded us that when we stand together, we are not weak. Orak watched the footage with a thoughtful expression. His voice was calm but direct. And now you build ships 10 times its size with weapons that can level continents. Yes, Daniel said honestly. Because the galaxy did not get safer, it got more dangerous, new threats rose, stronger enemies came. But Horizon taught us to never be unprepared again. Laura brought up another hologram, modern human ships now, a destroyer escorting a convoy of alien refugee ships, a carrier delivering medical supplies to a plague-struck moon, a cruiser fighting off pirates while protecting a science station. We don't build ships just to fight, she said. We build them to protect, to serve, to make sure what happened to Earth never happens to anyone else. A few aliens in the crowd began to nod. Their own species had once faced dangers, invasions, disasters, betrayal. They knew the feeling of being unprotected. Daniel finished with a simple line. We carry Horizon's spirit with us in every ship we build, not to conquer, but to defend those who cannot defend themselves. The hologram faded, and for a long moment no one spoke. Then one of the younger alien diplomats, her voice soft, said, Maybe the dreadnought in orbit is not a threat but a promise. Laura and Daniel said nothing. They let the words hang in the air, letting the council decide what they meant. Outside, the ship still waited, silent and still. But inside the chamber, something had changed. The name Horizon had reached across the stars, and it had been heard. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as Laura tapped her console again. But this time, the hologram that appeared was not about Earth's past. It didn't show old wars or human soldiers. It didn't show Horizon or wounded refugees. It showed something else. something that made the entire council fall silent. A large, dark shape appeared in space, massive and cold. It was not a human ship, nor one belonging to any known species. The object seemed to be made of black metal that reflected no light. Its edges were twisted, its form almost unnatural. There were no windows, no engines, no markings, just pure silence in motion. Gasps and murmurs broke out across the chamber. Several alien diplomats stood in shock. Others whispered in fear. Some recognized the shape. They had seen similar fragments in ancient ruins or heard stories passed down in whispers. Daniel's voice was steady, but even he looked more serious than before. "This is what we've detected entering the edge of known space," he said. "This is not ours." Laura turned to the council. "It is still weeks away from reaching any settled system, but it's moving fast, and it's not alone." The hologram zoomed out to reveal more of the strange objects. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all following the same silent course through space. Some were small, others were larger than any dreadnought. "They're not broadcasting any signals," Laura said. "They're not responding to hails, and they're not traveling like any fleet we've ever seen." One of the alien ambassadors stood up in alarm. "You're saying they're heading toward us?" "Yes," Daniel answered. "And they're coming through the void, the part of space none of us dare explore, where ships vanish and nothing returns." The room grew colder. One of the council members whispered something in a language that sounded like a prayer. Another slammed his hand on the table. "Why are you telling us this now?" he demanded. "Why not warn us earlier?" Laura looked him straight in the eye. "Because you were too busy fearing us to hear what we came to say?" Daniel nodded. "The dreadnought we brought to your system, it wasn't for intimidation," he said. "It's here because it's the only thing we have that might hold them back if they arrive sooner than expected." Shock spread through the chamber. The aliens had thought the dreadnought was a threat to them, but now it became clear. It was here to protect. Orak rose. Slowly, his voice low. "What do you know about them?" Daniel hesitated, then answered honestly. "Not enough. Our long-range scans picked them up by accident. At first we thought it was debris or a natural formation. But the closer we looked, the more we realized these things are alive, or at least controlled by something. They move with purpose, they're silent but organized," Laura added. "We tried sending drones. They were destroyed. No signals, no warning, just gone." The hologram showed a small Terran probe flying toward one of the dark shapes, then vanishing in a flash of energy, completely erased from existence. More murmurs, more fear. But something else too. Unity. For the first time, the council members looked at each other not as competitors or rivals, but as fellow survivors. Daniel took a breath. "This is why we build weapons. This is why we train for what others call paranoia, because out there in the dark, something always waits. Something worse than war, something that doesn't care about peace or diplomacy." The chamber lights dimmed slightly as Laura tapped her console again. But this time the hologram that appeared was not about Earth's past. It didn't show old wars or human soldiers. It didn't show Horizon or wounded refugees. It showed something else. Something that made the entire council fall silent. A large, dark shape appeared in space, massive and cold. It was not a human ship, nor one belonging to any known species. The object seemed to be made of black metal that reflected no light. Its edges were twisted, its form almost unnatural. There were no windows, no engines, no markings, just pure silence in motion. Gasps and murmurs broke out across the chamber. Several alien diplomats stood in shock. Others whispered in fear. Some recognized the shape. They had seen similar fragments in ancient ruins or heard stories passed down in whispers. Daniel's voice was steady, but even he looked more serious than before. "This is what we've detected entering the edge of known space," he said. "This is not ours." Laura turned to the council. "It is still weeks away from reaching any settled system, but it's moving fast, and it's not alone." The hologram zoomed out to reveal more of the strange objects. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all following the same silent course through space. Some were small, others were larger than any dreadnought. They're not broadcasting any signals, Laura said. They're not responding to hails, and they're not traveling like any fleet we've ever seen. One of the alien ambassadors stood up in alarm. You're saying they're heading toward us? Yes, Daniel answered. And they're coming through the void, the part of space none of us dare explore, where ships vanish and nothing returns. The room grew colder. One of the council members whispered something in a language that sounded like a prayer. Another slammed his hand on the table. Why are you telling us this now? He demanded. Why not warn us earlier? Laura looked him straight in the eye. Because you were too busy fearing us to hear what we came to say? Daniel nodded. The dreadnought we brought to your system, it wasn't for intimidation, he said. It's here because it's the only thing we have that might hold them back if they arrive sooner than expected. Shock spread through the chamber. The aliens had thought the dreadnought was a threat to them, but now it became clear. It was here to protect. Orac rose. Slowly, his voice low. What do you know about them? Daniel hesitated, then answered honestly. Not enough. Our long-range scans picked them up by accident. At first we thought it was debris or a natural formation. But the closer we looked, the more we realized these things are alive, or at least controlled by something. They move with purpose, they're silent but organized, Laura added. We tried sending drones. They were destroyed. No signals, no warning, just gone. The hologram showed a small Terran probe flying toward one of the dark shapes, then vanishing in a flash of energy, completely erased from existence. More murmurs, more fear. But something else too. Unity. For the first time, the council members looked at each other not as competitors or rivals, but as fellow survivors. Daniel took a breath. This is why we build weapons. This is why we train for what others call paranoia. Because out there in the dark, something always waits. Something worse than war, something that doesn't care about peace or diplomacy. Laura spoke softly but firmly. We're not asking for control, we're not asking for command, we're asking for trust. Let us help prepare you. Let us stand with you. One ambassador, who had been against the humans from the start, looked up now, her voice shaken. You would protect us, even after how we treated you? Daniel gave a small smile. We're human. We remember pain, but we don't let it stop us from doing what's right. Silence settled again, but this time, it wasn't from fear, it was from realization, from understanding that the galaxy might soon face something beyond all their imagining, and that only by standing together could they survive it. One by one, ambassadors looked to Orac, waiting for his words, waiting to see which path would be chosen, division or unity. The council chamber was quiet again, but it was not the same kind of silence as before. It wasn't heavy with suspicion or fear of humans anymore. Now it was filled with something else, concern for the unknown, and a growing understanding of what was truly at stake. The hologram of the unknown fleet still hovered in the center of the room, dark and massive. The shapes floated slowly in space like shadows with purpose. Alien eyes watched them with growing unease. And at that moment, many realized the truth. The real danger was not the humans. It was whatever was coming through the void. Elder Orac stood slowly from his seat. His robes shimmered as he stepped closer to the center of the chamber. His expression was serious, and his glowing eyes looked at each delegate one by one before turning to Daniel Harris. For many years, Orac said, the galaxy has looked upon humans with fear. You rose fast, built mighty weapons, and kept to your own path. He paused. We feared your strength because we did not understand your pain. Daniel nodded once, silently, letting Orac speak. But now, Orac continued, you show us something else, not just firepower, not just history, but purpose. You bring warning, not threats, and you carry strength, not for control, but for defense. He turned back toward the other alien leaders. Perhaps the galaxy does need humans after all. A quiet murmur passed through the council, and then slowly, others began to stand. One by one, they voiced their support. A long-limbed ambassador with silver eyes spoke next. The Void Fleet. Israel. I have seen similar fragments near the edge of my system. I believe the humans speak the truth. I vote to support their plan. Another followed. Our science ships were lost in the same region. No trace found. If the Terran fleet can help stop whatever is coming, we must not waste time. One by one more agreed, some still hesitated, but the fear of the dark shapes was greater than their old distrust of humans. Finally, Orak raised his hand. Then we vote now, he said. Not on fear, but on unity. Each representative pressed their symbol, their votes glowing across the chamber in a ring of soft lights. A moment later, the results appeared in the air for all to see. Passed, the Terran delegation had been accepted, not just as observers, but as allies. Laura exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing just a little. Daniel gave her a small nod. They had done it, but it wasn't over. Not yet. Daniel stepped forward. Thank you, he said. But words and votes are only the beginning. We must act now. He brought up a new hologram, maps of the star systems closest to the void, human scout paths, shared sensor data, safe zones, potential attack vectors. We're already preparing a defensive line, he explained. We'll place ships where they can intercept any early threats. We'll share our shield tech with allies who need it, and offer training to any defense forces willing to learn. Another ambassador asked, will the dreadnought remain here? Yes, Laura replied. It will protect this system until the outer defenses are ready, and it will not fire unless fired upon first. The room seemed lighter now, as if the dread that had hung over it all day had lifted just slightly, not because the threat had vanished, but because now no one would face it alone. Outside the council dome, in the cold orbit above the planet, the human dreadnought floated silently. Its massive guns were powered but idle. Its hull glowed softly with energy, ready but calm, not a symbol of war, but a promise of protection. Inside the ship, human officers watched the data screens. Engineers ran diagnostics. Pilots sat in ready positions, waiting for the order to move if needed. And in the heart of the ship, a small message came through. Daniel's voice to his crew. We've been accepted. Prepare to coordinate with Council Defense. A cheer erupted on the bridge, quiet but proud. Not loud like a victory parade, more like the breath of relief from people who knew they were finally seen, finally understood. Back in the council chamber, Daniel stood beside Laura, looking out at the other species. Some still looked unsure, but most looked ready. We are not your saviors, Daniel said. We're just people who've been through hell and refuse to let others face it alone. Orak smiled faintly for the first time that day. Then let the stars bear witness, he said. From this moment, the humans stand with the council and the council stands with Earth. And as the chamber lights returned to full brightness, something had clearly changed. A bridge had been built, not of steel or lasers, but of truth. Humanity had arrived. Not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as protectors, ready to stand between the galaxy and the shadows beyond. And out there, in the dark, the unknown fleet still moved, slow and silent, unaware that this time, the galaxy would not be waiting helplessly. This time, humanity would be ready. Shall I now help you format the complete story into a final document? Or do you want titles, thumbnails, or SEO content for your HFY video next?